My partner cheated on me, should I forgive him? A hotel receipt slipped out of his pocket when I grabbed his jacket. Rebecca, I can explain. The Marriott downtown? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Room 412? He opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish, gasping for air. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Connor, he ran his hands through his hair. That nervous habit I'd found endearing for 8 years of marriage. Now it just looked pathetic. I messed up. I messed up so bad, Becca. It's not what you think, but I messed up. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in around us. Our coffee mugs from this morning still sat in the sink, evidence of the normal life we'd shared just hours ago. Who? It doesn't matter who, it matters to me. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Melissa. From accounting. Of course it was Melissa. The blonde who always laughed too hard at his jokes during office parties, who'd asked about his weekend plans with wide, interested eyes. How long? 2 months. The words came out in a whisper. 2 months. While I'd been planning our anniversary trip to wine country, while I'd been telling my sister how lucky I was to have found my person, while I'd been sleeping next to him every night, completely oblivious. I ended it, he said quickly, stepping toward me. 3 days ago I ended it. I couldn't do it anymore. The guilt was eating me alive. You ended it 3 days ago, but you were at a hotel with her last Tuesday. That was when I told her it was over. I met her there to break it off in person. I owed her that much. I laughed, a bitter sound that didn't feel like it came from me. You owed her closure, but you couldn't give me honesty. Becca, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Don't throw away 8 years because of my stupidity. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I stared at him across our kitchen island. This man who'd promised to love and cherish me in sickness and in health. The same man who'd held me when my dad died, who'd painted the nursery blue when we thought we were having a boy, who'd cried with me when we lost the baby at 12 weeks. Therapy, he said desperately. I'll go to therapy. We'll go to couples counseling. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes. I'll do anything. The receipt was still in my hand, the proof of his betrayal printed in neat black ink. Room service charges, parking fees, the cost of destroying our marriage itemized like a grocery list. I need time to think. How much time? I don't know, Connor. I don't know anything anymore. He took another step toward me, his eyes red and pleading. Can I stay? Tonight, I mean. I can sleep on the couch. I just can't bear the thought of leaving you alone with this. I looked at him for a long moment, trying to find the man I'd fallen in love with in college, the one who'd proposed on the beach in Santa Monica with sand in his hair and tears in his eyes. One night, I said finally, and then we figure out what comes next. He nodded frantically, relief flooding his features. Thank you. Thank you, Becca. I promise I'll make this right. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. But as I watched him gather his things from our bedroom, moving them to the guest room like a stranger in his own house, I wondered if some things were too broken to fix. The receipt was still clutched in my hand, and I realized I'd been holding it so tightly that my fingernails had left crescents in my palm. The kitchen felt different now, tainted by the conversation we'd just had. Tomorrow I'd have to wake up and decide whether forgiveness was possible, or if some betrayals cut too deep to heal. I didn't sleep that night. Connor's snoring drifted from the guest room while I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last 2 months. Every late meeting, every rushed goodbye, every time he'd come home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed to tell someone before I lost my mind completely. He what? My sister Julia's voice cracked through the phone. 2 months. With Melissa from his office. That snake. I never liked her at the Christmas party. She was all over him. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, grateful for Julia's immediate anger on my behalf. He says he ended it. He wants to go to counseling. What do you want? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I wanted to go back to last week, when my biggest worry was whether to book the ocean view or garden suite for our anniversary trip. I don't know. Becca, honey, you know I love you, but please tell me you're not seriously considering staying with him. Before I could answer, Connor appeared in the kitchen doorway looking like he hadn't slept either. His hair stuck up at odd angles, and he was wearing the old college t-shirt he only put on when he was stressed. I have to go, I told Julia. Call me later. Promise me you'll call me later. Connor poured himself coffee with shaking hands. Was that Julia? She deserved to know. He winced. What did she say? What do you think she said? We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same spot where we'd planned vacations and argued about mortgage rates and debated baby names we'd never get to use. Now it felt like neutral territory in a war zone. I called Dr. Morrison, Connor said quietly. He can see us Thursday at 2. Dr. Morrison was the therapist we'd seen after the miscarriage, a kind man with gentle eyes who'd helped us navigate that particular darkness. I haven't agreed to counseling yet, I know, but if you decide you want to try, the appointment's there. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Was this real remorse, or was he just scared of losing his comfortable life? I need ground rules, I said finally. Hope flickered in his eyes. Anything. Complete honesty. About everything. No more lies, not even little ones about where you're going or who you're with. Done. You don't contact Melissa, ever. If you have to interact with her at work, I want to know about it immediately. Already handled. I spoke to HR this morning about transferring to the Seattle office. There's an opening in project management. I blinked. You'd move to Seattle? I'd move to Mars if that's what it took. The funny thing was, I believed him. That was almost worse than if he'd been callous about it. His desperation made it real in a way that hurt more than anger. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Julia told me what happened. Come over for dinner tonight. Both of you if you want. Your family knows, Connor said, reading over my shoulder. My mom wants us to come to dinner. He looked surprised. She doesn't hate me? She might. We'll find out. That evening we sat in my parents' dining room like we had dozens of times before, except everything was different. My dad carved the roast in careful silence while my mom fussed over side dishes. Julia glared at Connor from across the table. So, my dad said finally, what's the plan? We're going to try counseling, I said, the words feeling strange in in my mouth. Julia snorted. Counseling doesn't fix cheating, Becca. Julia, my mom warned. No, she's right to be angry, Connor said, speaking directly to my sister. I screwed up in the worst possible way. I betrayed Rebecca and I betrayed this family. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm hoping for a chance to earn it back. Pretty words, Julia muttered. My dad set down his carving knife. Connor, I've known you for 8 years. You helped me build that deck. You drove through a snowstorm to get to the hospital when Rebecca's grandmother died. That's why this is so hard to understand. I don't understand it either. Mr. Walsh, I wish I had some grand explanation, but I don't. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt the person I love most in the world. The conversation continued around me, but I felt detached from it all. Everyone had opinions about what I should do, what Connor should do, how marriages work, how trust gets rebuilt, but none of them had to wake up every morning wondering if their husband was thinking about another woman. After dinner, Connor and I drove home in silence. The streetlights cast moving shadows across his face, and I found myself studying his profile like I was seeing him for the first time. Your family has every right to hate me, he said as we pulled into our driveway. They don't hate you. They're protecting me. Good. That's what family should do. Inside, he lingered by the staircase. I know I don't have the right to ask, but will you consider moving back to our room? I miss you. The honest answer was that I missed him too. I missed the weight of him beside me, the way he always ran warm and kicked off the covers, the little snores that used to annoy me and now left the guest room feeling too quiet. Not yet, I said. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. The appointment with Dr. Morrison is Thursday at 2. I can pick you up from work if you want. I'll meet you there. Okay. Good night, Becca. Good night. I watched him climb the stairs to our bedroom, his bedroom now, and wondered if we were fooling ourselves. Could you really rebuild a marriage from the ground up, or were we just delaying the inevitable? Dr. Morrison's office felt smaller than I remembered. The same beige walls, the same box of tissues strategically placed on the coffee table, the same gentle eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Rebecca, Connor, it's good to see you both again. I wish it were under better circumstances. Connor shifted beside me on the familiar couch. Thank you for fitting us in so quickly. Of course. Now why don't you tell me what's brought you here today? I let Connor explain. His voice cracked when he got to the part about the hotel, and he kept glancing at me like he was afraid I'd bolt from the room. I see, Dr. Morrison said when Connor finished. Rebecca, how are you feeling right now? Like I don't know my own husband. That's completely understandable. Connor, what do you hope to achieve through these sessions? I want to save my marriage. I want Rebecca to trust me again. And Rebecca, what do you want? I stared at the coffee table. I want to stop feeling like I'm losing my mind. I want to stop wondering if everything he tells me is a lie. Dr. Morrison nodded. Trust once broken takes time to rebuild. Connor, you'll need to be patient with this process. Rebecca, you'll need to communicate when you're struggling rather than letting doubts fester. It sounded so simple when he put it like that. The session lasted an hour. We scheduled another for the following week. In the parking lot, Connor opened my car door for me like he always used to, then seemed to realize how presumptuous that might look. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. It's okay. How do you think that went? I think we have a lot of work to do. He nodded solemnly. I know, but I'm committed to doing the work, Becca, whatever it takes. That evening, he made dinner. Spaghetti carbonara, my favorite. He'd stopped at the fancy grocery store for real Parmesan and fresh eggs. It felt like an apology meal. This is really good, I said. His whole face lit up. Yeah? I thought I might have overcooked the pasta. No, it's perfect. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. I watched him glance at it, watched his expression shift slightly. He reached for it. Who is it? Just work stuff. But something in his tone made me put down my fork. Can I see? Rebecca, it's just a project update from Randy. Then you won't mind showing me. His jaw tightened. I thought we agreed to work on trust. We agreed on complete honesty. That includes letting me see who's texting you. You're being paranoid. The word hit me like a slap. Paranoid? I found a hotel receipt in your jacket 3 days ago, Connor. I think I'm being reasonable. I know, but you can't expect me to hand over my phone every time it makes a sound. That's not trust, that's surveillance. I stood up from the table. Maybe surveillance is what this marriage needs right now. That's not healthy, Becca. You know what else isn't healthy? Sleeping with your coworker for 2 months. He ran his hands through his hair. I'm trying here. I really am. But you have to meet me halfway? Meet you halfway? You cheated on me and now I'm supposed to pretend everything is normal? I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove myself. By hiding your phone from me? By not treating me like a criminal in my own home? I stared at him across our kitchen. This man I'd shared 8 years of my life with. He looked genuinely frustrated, like I was being unreasonable. Like I was the problem. You made yourself a criminal, Connor. I didn't do that to you. I know that. God, I know that. But how long am I going to be punished for this? I don't know. How long did you lie to me? How long did you look me in the eye every morning and pretend nothing was wrong? He didn't have an answer for that. The next week was more of the same. He'd come home from work, and I'd study his face for signs of deception. He'd get a text and I'd watch him check it, trying to read his expression. He started turning his phone screen away from me when he used it, which only made me more suspicious. You're doing it again, I said one evening as we watched TV. Doing what? Hiding your phone. I'm not hiding it. I'm just using it. You tilted it away from me. Connor sighed and set the phone down. Becca, this is exactly what Dr. Morrison was talking about. You're looking for problems that aren't there. Am I? Or am I finally paying attention to things I should have noticed months ago? What's that supposed to mean? You hid an affair from me for 2 months, Connor. 2 months of coming home and acting normal. Of kissing me goodnight. Of making small talk about your day while you were thinking about another woman. I wasn't. How do I know that? How do I know what you're thinking about when you look at me? How do I know if you're really at work when you say you're at work? Because I'm telling you the truth now. Are you? The question hung in the air between us. He looked at me like I'd wounded him. Yes, I am telling you the truth now. But doubt had had taken root in my chest like a weed, growing stronger every day. When he worked late, I wondered if he was really at the office. When he went to the grocery store, I wondered if he took a detour. When he smiled at something on his phone, I wondered who had made him smile. I started doing things I'd never done before, checking his email when he left his laptop open, looking through his pockets when I did laundry, noting the mileage on his car. I found nothing suspicious, which somehow made it worse. Either he was telling the truth, or he'd gotten better at hiding things. "You're checking up on me," he said one morning, finding me looking at his phone after he'd gone upstairs to shower. I didn't deny it. "Yes, this isn't working, Becca." "What isn't working?" "This. Us. You don't trust me, and I don't blame you for that, but I can't live like this. I feel like I'm under surveillance in my own home." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you cheated." I did think about it. I think about it every single day, but we can't rebuild our marriage if you're going to monitor my every move. Then what do you suggest? I don't know, but this isn't sustainable. He was right, and I hated him for being right. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who went through her husband's things and questioned his every word, but I didn't know how to stop. That night, I lay awake in the guest room listening to him move around upstairs, getting ready for bed, brushing his teeth, settling into the bed we used to share. I wondered if he was relieved to have the space to himself, or if he really missed me the way he claimed. My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. "How are you holding up?" I typed back, "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Trust him again. Or let go of the need to." Maybe that's your answer right there. I stared at her message for a long time before turning off the phone. Tomorrow we had another counseling session. Tomorrow Connor would promise to be patient while I learned to trust again. And tomorrow I'd promise to try harder to believe him. But right now, in the dark guest room, I wondered if some things were too broken to fix. Connor's phone became my obsession. Every buzz, every notification, every time the screen lit up with a message. I memorized his passcode by watching his fingers tap the screen. I learned the timing of his showers so I could scroll through his messages while he was upstairs. "You seem distracted lately," he said one evening, as we sat watching TV. I was distracted by the sound of his phone charging on the nightstand upstairs, by wondering if he'd gotten any new messages since I'd checked an hour ago. "Just tired. Maybe we should go to bed early tonight." The suggestion made my pulse quicken, not because of any romantic implication, but because it meant I wouldn't be able to check his phone until morning. "I'm not really tired, more like mentally exhausted." He reached over and touched my hand. "Dr. Morrison said this would be hard." "The rebuilding process?" I nodded, but I wasn't thinking about Dr. Morrison's advice. I was thinking about the text Connor had gotten that afternoon from someone named Chris. Just a, "Hey man, what's up?" But I'd spent 20 minutes trying to figure out if Chris was code for something else. "I have to use the bathroom," I said, getting up from the couch. Instead of going to the bathroom, I crept upstairs and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. My fingers flew across the screen, checking messages, recent calls, email. Nothing new since my last check. "Becca?" Connor's voice called from downstairs. I fumbled to put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, my pulse racing. "Coming!" This became my routine. Quick checks when he showered. Longer searches when he ran errands. I told myself I was just being cautious, just protecting myself from more lies. But the searching never satisfied the anxiety. If anything, it made it worse. Every innocent text felt suspicious. Every normal conversation seemed to have hidden meaning. "Randy wants to grab drinks after work tomorrow," Connor mentioned over dinner. Randy. I'd seen that name in Connor's contacts, in his text messages. Just normal work stuff, but still. Which Randy? "Randy Patterson from the design team. You met him at the Christmas party." I had met Randy. He was married with 3 kids and talked endlessly about his son's little league games. Completely harmless. But my brain wouldn't accept that. "How late will you be?" "Probably not too late. Maybe 8 or 9. 8 or 9. That was at least 3 hours unaccounted for. 3 hours where he could be anywhere, doing anything. "Okay, you could come with us if you want." "No, that's fine. I'll probably just catch up on some reading." What I actually did was sit by the window and watch for his car. When he wasn't home by 9:15, I started calling his phone. It went straight to voicemail. He walked in at 9:30, looking relaxed and slightly buzzed. "Sorry, my phone died. Randy wanted to show me this new craft brewery downtown. The IPA was incredible. Your phone was dead." "Yeah, I forgot to charge it before I left work." I wanted to believe him. Part of me did believe him, but another part of me filed away this information as potential evidence of deception. That night, after Connor fell asleep, I took his phone downstairs and plugged it into the charger. I scrolled through everything. His text with Randy showed the normal progression of their evening. Photos of beer flights. A complaint about the loud music. A joke about Randy's wife giving him grief for coming home late. It all checked out. But instead of feeling relieved, I felt hollow, because I knew I'd do the same thing tomorrow night. And the night after that. "You're checking my phone again," Connor said one morning, finding me in the kitchen with his device in my hands. I didn't deny it. "Yes, Becca, this has to stop. Does it? Because last time I trusted you blindly, you were sleeping with someone else. That was different, and you know it." "How was it different?" "Because I'm not lying to you anymore." "How do I know that?" He stared at me across the kitchen, and for the first time since this whole mess started, he looked truly defeated. "Because I'm telling you, I'm not lying. That's what liars say, Connor. So what do you want from me? You want me to quit my job? Never see another human being? What would it take for you to believe me? I want you to understand why I can't just flip a switch and trust you again. I do understand that. But this isn't healthy for either of us." He was right, but I couldn't seem to stop. The anxiety lived in my chest now, a constant weight that pressed down every time his phone made a sound. Every notification felt like a threat. At work, I found myself distracted during meetings, wondering what messages Connor might be getting. I started taking longer lunch breaks so I could drive past his office building, just to see if his car was in the parking lot. My coworker Rachel noticed my distraction during a presentation to clients. "Everything okay? You seemed kind of out of it in there. Just some stuff at home. Want to talk about it?" I almost said yes. The urge to confess everything was overwhelming. To tell someone about the hotel receipt, about Connor's affair, about my growing obsession with monitoring his every move. Maybe later. But later never came. How do you explain to someone that you've become a person you don't recognize? That you're spending your days checking your husband's location on his phone's GPS? That you've memorized the numbers of all his female coworkers? coworkers. The worst part was that I wasn't finding anything incriminating. Connor's digital footprint was boringly innocent. Work emails, texts about weekend plans with mutual friends, the occasional funny meme from his brother, which meant either he was telling the truth or he'd gotten much better at hiding things. Both possibilities terrified me. I think we should talk about taking a break, I said one evening after another fruitless search through his messages. Connor looked up from his laptop. A break from what? From this. From trying to make this work. You want to separate? I want to not feel crazy all the time. Becca, please. I know this is hard, but we're making progress. Are we? Because I feel like I'm getting worse, not better, Dr. Morrison said. Dr. Morrison doesn't have to live with the constant wondering. He doesn't have to fight the urge to check your phone every 5 minutes. Connor closed his laptop and moved to sit beside me on the couch. What if I gave you complete access? To my phone, my email, everything? You're missing the point. What is the point? The point is that I shouldn't need to check those things. I should be able to trust you without constant verification. But you don't trust me. No, I don't. The admission hung between us like a dead thing. So what do we do? I don't know. That night, I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, listening to Connor move around upstairs, getting ready for bed, setting his phone on the nightstand to charge. The same phone I'd be checking first thing in the morning. I'd become a prisoner of my own paranoia, trapped in a cycle I couldn't break. And the worst part was, I still wasn't sure if my suspicions were justified or if Connor was exactly who he claimed to be now. 2 weeks later, Connor announced he was working late again. A client presentation that ran long, he said. He'd probably be home around 10. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions, just nodded and told him I'd save him some dinner. But by 9:30, I was pacing the kitchen. By 9:45, I was checking his location on his phone's family sharing app. The little dot showed him at the office, exactly where he said he'd be. He walked in at 10:15 with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up, looking genuinely exhausted. How did the presentation go? Brutal. 3 hours of revisions, but we finally got approval on the Morrison account. The Morrison account. I'd seen emails about that project in his work correspondence. It all checked out, like it always did. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge. You're amazing. I'm starving. I watched him heat up his dinner, watched him eat it while scrolling through his personal email. Everything normal, everything innocent. Which is why what happened next felt like such a betrayal. Connor went upstairs to shower, leaving his phone on the kitchen counter. I almost didn't check it. Almost decided to trust him for once, to let him have his privacy. But the compulsion was stronger than my good intentions. I picked up the phone and entered his passcode. The screen lit up with his usual array of apps. Messages showed no new notifications. Email was clear. Social media apps barely used. Then I saw something that made me pause. A messaging app I didn't recognize. Something called Signal. My finger hovered over the icon. Connor had never mentioned using Signal. I'd never seen him open this app. Never seen notifications from it. I tapped it. The app opened to a conversation thread with someone listed as M in the contacts. The most recent message was from yesterday. Connor. I think about you all the time. M. This is so hard. I miss you, Connor. I know, me too. But we have to be careful. When can I see you again? Connor. Soon. I'll figure something out. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I scrolled up through their conversation history. Weeks of messages. Sweet nothings. Promises. Plans to meet. And then at the top of the thread, the message that stopped my world completely. Connor. This is getting harder. She's so close to finding out. M. Maybe it's time to tell her. Connor. Not yet. I need more time to figure out how to handle this. The shower was still running upstairs. Connor's voice drifted down, humming some song I didn't recognize. The same man who'd been lying to my face for weeks, who'd convinced me I was paranoid, who'd made me feel guilty for not trusting him. I took screenshots of everything, not just the recent messages, but weeks of conversation. Evidence of a relationship that had never ended, that had maybe never even paused. All those nights he'd come home late. All those work emergencies and client dinners and spontaneous drinks with Randy. All those times I'd checked his regular messages and found nothing suspicious because he was using a different app entirely. The shower turned off upstairs. I quickly closed the app and put the phone back exactly where Connor had left it. Then I walked to the guest room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screenshots on my own phone. The evidence I'd been searching for was finally in my hands, and it felt like holding broken glass. Becca? Connor's voice called from the hallway. You okay? You seemed quiet tonight. I'm fine, I called back. Just tired, but I wasn't fine. I was sitting in the guest room with proof that every instinct I'd had was right. Every moment of paranoia, every suspicious thought, every time I'd felt like he was lying to me, I'd been correct. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the gaslighting. The way he'd made me feel crazy for questioning him. The way he'd turned my completely reasonable suspicions into character flaws. You're being paranoid. Becca, you have to learn to trust me again. This isn't healthy for either of us. All of it calculated. All of it designed to make me doubt myself while he continued his affair using an app he thought I'd never find. I heard Connor getting ready for bed upstairs, brushing his teeth, setting his alarm, probably putting his phone on the nightstand to charge. The phone that contained weeks of evidence that our marriage counseling sessions were a joke, that his promises of change were lies, that I'd been living with a stranger who'd gotten very good at deception. I looked at the screenshots again, rereading the messages. I think about you all the time. I miss you. When can I see you again? While I'd been torturing myself with guilt over checking his regular messages and finding nothing, he'd been having a full emotional and physical relationship with Melissa on a completely different platform. The planning that had gone into this level of deception was staggering. The separate app, the coded contact name, the careful management of two different digital lives. This wasn't a man who'd made a mistake and was trying to change. This was a man who'd learned from getting caught and had simply gotten better at hiding. My phone buzzed with a text from Julia. How are things going with Connor. Still doing the counseling? I stared at her message for a long time. How do you tell your sister that everything you've been trying to rebuild was built on quicksand? That the man upstairs brushing his teeth has been lying to your face for weeks while you questioned your own sanity? I typed back, can I call you tomorrow? I need to talk. Of course. Everything okay? Not really. Connor's footsteps moved across the ceiling above me. Getting into bed, probably checking his phone one last time before sleep. Maybe even sending Em a good night message on Signal while lying in the bed we used to share. I looked at the screenshots again. The message thread painted a picture of a relationship that had never ended, that had maybe even intensified since our confrontation about the hotel receipt. While Connor had been promising transparency and begging for second chances, he'd been more deeply involved with Melissa than ever. Tomorrow, I would have to decide what to do with this information. Tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to confront a man who'd proven himself to be an expert at manipulation and lies. But tonight, I sat in the guest room with the truth finally in my hands, and realized that knowing the truth and figuring out what to do with it were two completely different things. I spent the next day rehearsing the confrontation in my head. Different approaches, different opening lines, different ways to present the evidence. But when Connor walked through the front door that evening, all my careful planning evaporated. He looked tired but content, loosening his tie as he kicked off his shoes. Normal, innocent, like a man coming home from an honest day's work, instead of someone who'd been orchestrating an elaborate deception for months. How was your day? He asked, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. The casual intimacy of it made my stomach turn. Fine. Yours? Long. That Morrison project is turning into a nightmare. 3 more revisions, and the client still isn't happy. The Morrison project. Another lie or another convenient truth mixed in with the deception? It didn't matter anymore. Connor, we need to talk. Something in my tone made him pause. Okay, what about? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and set it on the kitchen island between us. The screenshots already pulled up on the screen. Explain this. He glanced at the phone, and I watched his face go through a series of micro-expressions. Confusion, recognition, panic, calculation. It happened in seconds, but I caught all of it. Becca, I can explain. Can you? Because this looks pretty clear to me. I swiped to the next screenshot. This is getting harder. She's so close to finding out. Your words, Connor. Your words to Melissa. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I swiped again. I think about you all the time. I miss you. When can I see you again? What part of this isn't what I think? He ran his hands through his hair, that familiar gesture that used to endear him to me and now just looked like panic. Let me explain. You told me it was over. You looked me in the eye and promised me it was over. It was over. I mean, it is over. The physical part. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. What about the emotional part? What about all these messages planning to see each other again? We weren't actually meeting up, but you were planning to. You were going to keep lying to me so you could figure out how to see her again. Connor sat down heavily on one of the kitchen stools, his head in his hands. I don't know what I was thinking. I was confused. You were confused? I was confused, Connor. When you called me paranoid for asking questions. When you made me feel crazy for not trusting you. When you sat in Dr. Morrison's office and talked about rebuilding trust while you were using a secret app to stay in touch with the woman you cheated with. I know how it looks. It looks like you never stopped the affair. It looks like you just got better at hiding it. He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. That's not true. Then what is true? Because I've been living in this house for weeks thinking I was losing my mind, thinking my suspicions were unreasonable, when the whole time you were proving me right. The messages, they weren't supposed to mean anything. It was just, we work together, Becca. It's complicated. You don't work together anymore. You transferred to avoid her, remember? Or was that another lie? Silence stretched between us. Connor's mouth opened and closed without sound. You didn't transfer, did you? I tried to. HR said there weren't any openings in Seattle. They put me on a waiting list. So you've been working in the same building as Melissa this entire time, seeing her every day, messaging her on Signal, and lying to me about all of it? Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper while I was going to therapy sessions and trying to learn how to trust you. Again, yes. While you were calling me paranoid for having completely reasonable concerns. Yes. Stared at this man I'd married. This stranger who'd shared my bed and my life while living in an entirely different reality. Do you understand what you've done to me? Becca, do you understand that I've spent weeks thinking I was crazy? That I started doubting my own instincts because you convinced me they were wrong? I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go, Connor? Was there a point where you planned to stop lying to me? Or were you just going to keep this up indefinitely? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Maybe. I went through your phone like a crazy person. I continued, my voice getting louder. I checked your email, your texts, your location. I turned into someone I didn't recognize because you made me feel like I couldn't trust my own judgment. I'm sorry. You made me apologize to you. In Dr. Morrison's office, you made me apologize for not trusting you enough. While you were actively betraying that trust, I know I messed up. Messed up? I laughed. A harsh sound that didn't feel like it came from me. You didn't mess up, Connor. You orchestrated a systematic campaign of lies and manipulation. That's not what I was trying to do. What were you trying to do? Enlighten me. What was the plan here? He was crying now, tears streaming down his face. I don't know. I was scared of losing you, so I thought if I could just phase it out gradually. Phase it out gradually. You mean slowly reduce your contact with the woman you were cheating with while keeping me in the dark about the fact that you were still in contact with her at all? I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking very clearly. This level of deception doesn't happen by accident. The separate app, the coded contact name, the careful timing of your messages. You put thought into this, Connor. I love you, Becca. I've always loved you. Don't. I held held up my hand to stop him. Don't you dare tell me you love me right now, but I do. You love me so much that you've been lying to my face for months. You love me so much that you let me think I was losing my mind rather than admit the truth. You love me so much that you made me feel guilty for not trusting you while you were proving every day that I shouldn't trust you. I can fix this. We can go back to Dr. Morrison. We can work through this. With what foundation, Connor? You want to rebuild trust? Trust requires honesty, and you've shown me that honesty isn't something you're capable of. I can be honest now, after I caught you, after I had to find the evidence myself because you certainly weren't going to volunteer it. He stood up from the stool, reaching toward me. Please, Becca, don't throw away 8 years. I stepped back from his outstretched hand. You threw it away. The minute you decided that lying to me was easier than being honest with me. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or double booking dinner plans. This was a choice. Hundreds of choices every single day to lie to me. What do you want me to do? I want you to leave. The words hung in the air between us. Connor's face went pale. Leave? Pack a bag. Go stay with your brother or get a hotel room. I don't care where you go, but I need you out of this house. Becca, please. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out. You had a second chance and you used it to get better at lying to me. There won't be a third chance. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe the woman who'd spent weeks questioning her own sanity was finally gone, replaced by someone who trusted her instincts. This is really it? You're really done? I'm really done. Connor went upstairs to pack a bag. I could hear him moving around our bedroom, opening drawers, gathering clothes, the sounds of a life being dismantled. When he came back downstairs with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, he looked smaller somehow, diminished. I'll call you in a few days. Maybe we can talk when you've had time to calm down. I am calm, Connor. That's the problem. If I were angry or emotional, you could dismiss this as a temporary reaction. But I'm perfectly calm, and I still want you gone. He lingered by the front door like he was waiting for me to change my mind. I really do love you, Becca. I know you think you do, but love doesn't look like what you've done to me. He nodded slowly, finally understanding that this wasn't a negotiation. I'm sorry. For all of it. I'm so sorry, I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. After he left, I sat alone in our kitchen with the evidence still pulled up on my phone. Weeks of secret messages between my husband and his affair partner. Proof that every instinct I'd had was right, every suspicion justified. The relief was overwhelming. Not because my marriage was over, but because I finally trusted myself again. Connor called 3 times over the next 2 days. I didn't answer. Julia came over on Saturday morning with coffee and pastries, taking one look at my face before pulling me into a hug. You did the right thing, she said. I know I did. That's what's so strange about it. I thought I'd feel sadder or angrier or something, but mostly I just feel relieved. Relieved? I'm not crazy, Julia. All those weeks of thinking I was being paranoid and unreasonable, and it turns out I was right about everything. He was still with her. He never stopped lying to me. She sat beside me on the couch, the same couch where Connor and I had watched TV together just days ago. What will you do now? I called a lawyer yesterday. Filed for divorce this morning. Julia's eyebrows shot up. That was fast. I've been thinking about it for weeks, even before I found the messages. I just needed to stop lying to myself about whether this marriage could be saved. My phone buzzed with another call from Connor. I declined it. He's been trying to reach me. Probably wants to explain himself or beg for another chance. Are you going to talk to him? Eventually I'll have to for the practical stuff. But right now, I don't have anything to say to him that I didn't already say. The house felt different without Connor's presence. Quieter, but not in a lonely way. More like the silence after a storm passes. The weirdest part is how much clearer everything seems now. For months, I felt like I was living in this fog of confusion and doubt, like I couldn't trust my own thoughts. But now that I know the truth, it's like someone turned the lights back on. Julia squeezed my hand. You gave him a second chance. You tried therapy, you tried to work through it. He's the one who chose to keep lying. I know. And I'm done making excuses for him. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. Connor, please just talk to me. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I showed Julia the message. Same thing he's been saying for weeks, she observed. Exactly. He still doesn't get it. He thinks this is something that can be fixed with the right words or the right promises. But you can't rebuild trust on a foundation of lies. I deleted the text without responding. Connor could beg all he wanted. He could promise therapy and transparency and whatever else he thought might win me back. But I'd learned something important over these past few months. Forgiveness requires honesty as a starting point. And Connor had proven, over and over again, that honesty wasn't something he was capable of giving me. I was done trying to make it work with someone who thought love meant protecting me from the truth. I was done being married to someone who made me doubt my own instincts. For the first time in months, I trusted myself completely. And that trust told me I'd made exactly the right choice.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.